No, man. All right.
And we're live just like that. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show. And this week in real estate, we have some interesting conversations. What is that, Dan?
It's a Stormtrooper bobblehead.
Oh,
I always.
I have the Yoda. Mine's not a bobblehead though, but mine gives candy. Oh, see,
Too much.
I got some
yeah,
candy.
and mine says the dark side made me do it.
Mine says, it just says Star Wars. But when you click his belly, he says, "Oh wait, I'm gonna see if you can hear this." May the force be with you.
May the force be with
We're
you.
already off to a rousing start. I've got candy, so you know
Banter.
I'm in a good mood. So welcome to another episode. This is actually a real estate show, believe it or not. So I'm Ray. Say hi, Dan. Don't forget to tell people hello.
Hello, Dan.
And we are two real estate agents that span the globe, depending on which direction you travel. You can join this show three ways. So we're broadcasting live on Facebook. We are broadcasting on
What's happening?
What did he say there? We're broadcasting on Facebook, and we display your comments. Like D says, WTH. Then she says, "Hey beards," and then she says, "Not arousing." I don't know where that came from. So
we are off to a fantastic start.
You can also join us on YouTube, which Melissa Morris, she's checking on YouTube. She says, "Oh, Yoda." So thank you guys for joining us. And then you can also join us on Clubhouse. So we usually start the Clubhouse room like just before we start the actual broadcast of the show. And they get kind of a sneak peek of what's coming up and some behind the scenes stuff. There's already some people on stage that may be adding to our discussion throughout the show. So if you want to join audio live, you're welcome to that way. So we'd love to have you. And if you're watching on any of those, please share the show, hit the bless button. If you're on Clubhouse, add some real estate people from the industry. Be sure you're following the Real Estate Networking Club. They've been gracious enough to host our podcast here. But man, in the meantime, Dan, how has your week been? Has it been as crazy where you are?
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with everything. And now I have buyers kind of coming back. I don't want to get in. Yeah, smash that like button, Matthew, or our producer Matt says. I didn't say it. It was a fan of the show. He's not a producer of the show. He just smashed that like button. But so, I mean, we have that story relief for buyers coming. So I don't want to get into it too much now. But it seems like more buyers coming out of the woodwork in different ways. So things have been nutty.
Yeah, I'm seeing, we've had a lot of buyers, but the number of inquiries has gone up, but the number of offers has gone down. And that's really interesting. The number of inquiries on properties that we're getting overall has increased, but the number of offers that we're seeing on properties has decreased. So I don't know if people are kind of more realistic, but there was a house that went under contract in an area where I have an investor looking, and it went under contract the same day. And I'd messaged the agent and I was like, "Hey, did that go under contract same day, like above list price, no concessions for the buyer? Tell me about it." And he's like, "No, it did not go above list price. And no, there are concessions for the buyer." So that's really interesting.
Now, was it just that house, or was it a sign of the market?
Right. That's what we're trying to figure out. So I'm doing as much calling as possible. Anytime I see a property go under contract in an area where I have someone looking, I'm calling. I'm saying, "Hey, tell me as much as you can about this thing." So we have some articles that are going to talk about the market specifically and what's happening. We're going to be talking about the mortgage rates creeping up, how the variance may impact the housing market. We've got another story on that. The seller profits, which is kind of what we're talking about now, did take a surprising turn. So we're going to see exactly what that turn was.
Dun, dun, dun.
But when there's a turn for sellers, there's also a turn for buyers. So although home prices are still rising, we're going to talk about some relief for buyers that we may see coming. You can't really have a crash both ways very easily, right?
It's going to crash on both sides
in 08. Speaking of 08, is that what we're facing? The mortgage lenders are loosening standards on jumbos, which we're going to cover. Is this going to lead to another 2008? Well, we have an economist that's going to weigh in on that topic. 1/3 of sellers are using something in their homes that would concern buyers during showings. You'll have to wait to find out exactly what we're talking about there.
Tease.
Chicago iBuyers are launching, and iBuyers have changed how much they pay for properties. yet another tease. You'll have to wait for later. And home builders are burning bridges.
They are.
With who? Or are they actually burning bridges?
Wait, I think you didn't bury the lead. I think you did that backwards.
Oh, I did? Okay, sorry. And there's a new law affecting real estate teams. We're going to talk about that too. So we've got a ton of stuff to cover. We're already 11 minutes past the hour. Dan, before we get into all these headlines, would you tell people what this show is actually all about?
You know what? I'd love to. I'm just reading. Pete commented there on Facebook how the turntables have turned. That's from The Office, and it makes me laugh. Yeah, well, when Ray and I met here on the interwebs eons ago, and just a fun side note for any new viewers, listeners, whatever, Ray and I have been doing this show 150 something episodes now.
Yeah, 50. What is it? 158.
Something like that.
Episodes.
We have met in real life twice. That's it.
Yeah.
And
we actually had quite a few episodes under our belt before we met in real life.
We had a lot. We had a full 2 years or something. I think we met in 18 was the first year. So we had a full 8-9 months of, it was a long time of episodes. And then we met the first time. Luckily, we liked each other. So it worked out. But anyway.
Dan's much taller than I thought.
I knew Ray. Ray's a big guy. But then when you meet him and he's a tall guy too. And you're like, so he's a big, tall guy. I'm just tall. I'm not big. I'm skinny. But we're very similar in size, but I was a little taller than Ray. So I do have an edge on Ray in that regard. But anyway, we met forever ago here on the interwebs. I had an idea for a show because I am in fact a bearded man of real estate. And when I met Ray, I noticed something very interesting about him.
What was that, Daniel?
He hates Yoda.
I don't hate Yoda, but he did creep me out as a kid.
Yeah, he doesn't like Star Wars that much. He really doesn't. He just happens to have a Yoda dispenser.
Well, it's hard to figure out like what is age appropriate for Star Wars, the original series, right? Because there's a moment where it gets really scary for Luke, and Yoda has something to do with that. Now, I don't want to spoil a movie that's like 40 years old.
I think you can.
But there's this moment in the cave that gets a little bit creepy. And then there's this little creepy. So as a kid, I did not like Yoda. You're right. But as an adult, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in Yoda. And I actually use him, which is why he sits on my desk. I actually use him, and there's candy in his belly. But I actually use him as an analogy as what real estate agents are supposed to be to our clients. We're to be the Yoda, let our clients be the Luke Skywalker.
100%. And he has the best quote ever. Do or do not. There is no try. That's it.
That's right. Keep
it simple. But anyway, I noticed obviously that he's a beautifully bearded man. But what I also noticed, he loves giving value up front to not only his clients, but also to just humans in general. So the show's about being more as an agent, but also being more as a human.
And one of the ways we think it's important to give back is by knowing what in the world is going on in the marketplace. That way you can help your clients manage one of the largest investments in the world. And so that's what we do here. We try to do the, I had a good compliment. Matt Farrell, he may be watching today. Hey, Matt. He's one of our newer agents. And he said, he spent some time going through news articles and stuff so that he would know what's going on in the world. And then he said, but I still think that hour watching your show gives me the best overview of everything that's happening in real estate. And it's like the one place I have to go to for just 1 hour to get it all. And that was really our goal. We want you to be able to come here, watch the show, spend an hour with us. And then it gives you basically an overview of everything that's happening that affects real estate that we can find. And we'd love to have your feedback and comments from people around the country who will come onto the show and add what's happening in their market, tell us the spin of something that's happening, and oftentimes give us some breaking news live while we're on the show. That's happened several times. And it never fails. Like we'll mention a company name and a COO or somebody from the company is watching the show and is like, hey guys, I can chime in since that's our company.
I'm like, cool.
Great. So we love the feedback. That's why we do it live. That's why we do it on so many different platforms. Oh, Howard Harold Broadsley, one of the people that makes our show worldwide, joined us today. He says, hey, gents. Hey, Howard, missed you, buddy.
And we have met him twice.
We have met him too.
Mm-hmm.
Peg. So she says agreed with news in 1 hour. There you go. All right. So I guess we better get started then, right?
Baby Yoda is a marketing play. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, what did Jones say? We're getting tender.
I think she means, we're getting tender, because I was talking about how we met, and yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's because I always say I always say you're a beautifully bearded man, so maybe that was it.
All right, so I'm not going to. So there's already a couple of great comments on talking about the market, which we'll get to. But first, I want to get to this new article from the CDC. Now, Nico, in the pre-show show, it's a prep show, really. It's not a pre-show, but the show prep show that we had yesterday.
And we were not prepped for yesterday's prep show, pre-show show.
No, literally yesterday, I texted Dan at 2 and said, "Are you ready?" He was like, "Oh yeah." But sometimes that happens because we're busy real estate agents first, and we take care of our clients. For me, my other agents first, and so sometimes that happens. But in that show prep show, Nico brought up that there were 10 states that extended their eviction ban. Well, yesterday, late afternoon at 5 o'clock, an article was released that said that the Centers for Disease Control issued a new eviction ban effective through October 3rd. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued a new federal eviction moratorium on Tuesday. The eviction ban will be targeted at areas of the country expecting high levels of coronavirus infections and will last for 60 days until October 3rd. The protection could cover around 90% of renters. The CDC's original eviction ban, which had been in effect since September of 2020, expired July 31st. So there's 11 million Americans that remain behind on their rent. Researchers found evictions led to a spike in virus cases and deaths. I want to see that research. There's no link on
always want to see that, but I don't ever find anything. It's just said.
I don't see. It's hard for me to see how that's possible, because it almost assumes that all of the renters stay in their home 100% of the time and never leave
the house. So I'm renting and I'm staying here. If you kick me out of my house, I'm going to go live amongst a bunch of really, really sick zombies. That's what they make it sound like. And I
don't know. That's hard for me to wrap my mind around, where they're getting the research and who's doing the research. So it says research has found eviction spike. Let me see. The White House previously said it couldn't extend the eviction ban after the Supreme Court ruled in June that the policy would only be renewed through legislation. It's unclear how the court will respond to the new moratorium, so that could be up for debate.
Right.
It could at least buy states and cities more time to distribute the $45 billion in rental assistance that was already allocated by Congress, since only $3 billion of that money has reached households by the end of June. All right, so I want to hear from the agents that we have in Clubhouse. I want to hear from the agents who are watching the show live. Is this having an impact on investor purchases? Is this having an impact if you're a property manager on properties that you're managing? What are you seeing is happening? It's been mentioned a lot on the Investor Podcast, which I've been tuning into more lately just to kind of get some ears on the ground. And one of the things they kept mentioning is right now you can't raise rent anywhere. So basically rent rates that have normal appreciation over time, you can't really raise the rent, because if you raise the rent and somebody stops paying the rent, you can't get them out. So now you're just losing money because you tried to raise the rent. Oh, we're wearing the same shirt. Did you notice that?
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I just noticed.
Nice. Huh. These are our special limited edition BMORE shirts that
they're super limited edition.
Yeah, I think 50 people have them. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, beside the point, Mike Elizabeth Rodell says,
great question.
How do they know it increases renter cases when there's been a ban on evictions?
No one can get evicted, so how do they know? How's their data around it?
That is quite possibly one of the best points yet.
I think that's a mic drop.
Yeah. Good. Elizabeth, she's a thinker.
Sure, that's not Mike. That might be Mike.
Could be Mike. Pete Thorpe said, which the Supreme Court already ruled is illegal. Great. Now we'll evict them in the winter. Oh, noes, we can't do that. Let's extend to spring. Yeah.
So if we have anyone in Clubhouse that wants to speak to this, I have this was a video, and it's CNBC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want more on this, this is a video with a little bit of text behind it. So if you want to go watch that video, and I pulled some stuff on it, but if anyone in Clubhouse wants to go, let's pull them up.
Nico can't talk right now, but he did send me a message on the back channel. He says, I can't talk, but I'm stuck with a family who were Section 8. The lease signer died, and the family has to pay the rent out of pocket. I can't evict, and they will not let anyone into the house, so we could try selling. Yeah, that kind of creates a dicey scenario. I'm getting a couple of messages from other folks too. You guys can come on up and talk.
Jump on in. Don't be shy.
Yeah. All right. So Susan, I see you're up here. Let me make you a moderator. Andy, I see you're up here too. So if any of you guys want to chime in about the eviction moratorium, what you see happening in your marketplace, just let me know. Just flash your mic and let me know there. Otherwise, we can kind of move on. But we've got a couple of comments on it. The big thing that I found was in a podcast which is geared towards investors. They were basically saying this is creating a huge hiccup in the plan for investors who can usually increase rent slightly or who can usually estimate materials well. The entire marketplace right now is making what are, I guess you could say, classic investor strategies more difficult to pull off because you can't estimate a rental increase. You can't estimate getting the other person out who's destroying the property.
Yeah.
And then if you did get them out who destroyed the property, how are you going to estimate materials cost and all that?
So, how are you going to get paid back for that?
Yeah.
They don't, and unless you're keeping their deposit.
And there were some articles talking about how landlords were begging for relief and just weren't seeing it yet.
Yeah. So I do have the notes I pulled from it. So the tenant must be involved in the assistance process. Now, there is because California had already extended to October, even when the other one expired. They extended it June 20th or something like that before the last one expired. So we were ahead of the curve on that. So this is the national part: is the tenant must be involved in the assistance process. So if the tenant doesn't cooperate, and this is they were interviewing. And it's Diana Olick, who is all over CNBC, but she was interviewing an actual landlord. And he said, my tenant's not cooperating. They're not filling out the application, so I can't get this rental assistance. So the money can't be dispersed.
The tenant has to cooperate in order for the landlord to get the rental assistance, but the tenant's the one that's not paying currently.
Right. And then there's other things that say up to a certain point, they have to pay 25% back. After that, then they have to pay all of it back. So they're not just off the hook for this stuff. But it's also, so here's what I found interesting, that small landlords own 23 million units. Because I think we covered on the show 3-4 weeks ago, a Canadian firm buying more real estate. And the numbers are, they're buying big numbers of American properties. But small landlords own 23 million units. So my question is, if small landlords can't get relief, are they going to sell? And then when they sell, who are going to buy that? Is that going to be these corporations buying these properties? And is that going to kill future small landlords? Does that make sense, the question I'm asking?
Yes.
I'm trying to kind of predict a future here. And I'm not going full conspiracy theory, but I'm kind of going conspiracy theory a little bit. If this relief cannot get to these landlords because there's so much red tape in place and they have to sell, who's going to buy these?
So you could have a flock of new wannabe landlords coming in too, and wannabe investors, because one of the things that we also know is that home prices are at an all-time high, which means refis are at an all-time high, which means the amount of equity in homes is currently high, and people that want to take their equity out and then invest in properties, that could very well be a possibility that we're seeing in the future. So I think you'll always have a buyer. If you don't have those buyers, you have the third of the marketplace that is currently displaced and can't find something to buy.
Right.
Finally, inventory is going to be trickling out to them while rates are still low, perhaps. But in order for them to sell, they have to be able to get the tenant out.
And they can't. And I have a client that's still waiting. I mean, we listed, she had 2 properties to sell. We sold one. Gosh, I think we were done in February, and we just waited until the ban was over, but it got extended. So she's like, dude, what do I do? And they pay, but they pay way under market value, and they don't treat the house well. So she's like, dude, what do we do? We can't, evict. But so going to the California part specifically, so LA, the one exception to the LA county's law, not LA cities, 2 separate things. is that the landlord can evict a tenant from a single-family home if the landlord owned the home before June 30th of this year and intends to use the house as their own residence or as a family member's residence. So not as their own residence, which is you have to be able to prove that, but a quote-unquote family member's residence.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? So some cities like the city of Los Angeles also have their own eviction bans in place, but those are only effective if the protections offered are stronger than LA County's. LA City's prohibition, for example, largely mirrors LA County's, except the moratorium currently lasts through August 1st, 2022. Did you hear that? 2022.
Yeah.
Right. But, and there is, I brought it up, I think it was on Sunday. I was on with Christina M. Smallhorn. Now she'll appear. Tiny houses. But we have $5 billion here in California giving out, but it has to go to the landlord. If the landlord doesn't want it, then it goes to the renter. So it's a little different than the national version, which is cool.
Let me get to a couple of the comments too. Man, I cannot clear my throat today. Pete Thorpe said the scariest thing is that there is a penalty tied in if and where someone evicted dies. There's jail time in which the landlord could have massive fines. But I wasn't aware that the CDC was a lawmaking body. That was a little shade. Today's shade brought to you by blinds.com. Melissa Mara says, my investor is about to close on a new rental property. I had to write a letter to the lender explaining how much he would get. And there is a huge demand for rentals. She said it's a 55 plus community. He has 3 other similar homes renting for the same amount. And all those tenants moved in this time last year, mid-Rona. Mike Elizabeth Rodell says the folks are buying are going to be wealthy who have been not spending during Rona, and now they need to. Yeah, or, they've been saving all their money from vacations and stuff. Matthew Clanton says landlords should just hire really annoying neighbors.
Stonks.
Clear out non-paying renters. Oh, that's hack of the day. All right, Andy, let me see. Andy, are you here? Can you flash your mic and let me know if you're here? All right, Andy's flashing his mic. He said that it is still possible to evict. So let me bring up our clubhouse room. Andy, tell me details on this. How are you able to evict?
And where is he?
Moratorium.
Yeah, this is Andy. Every rose has its thorn rose. In Atlanta, I have a client, long-term investor, and he was able to evict, I think, late last year, early this year, not because of non-payment, but because the renter broke another guideline of the rental agreement, and I believe it was dogs. Apparently, she wasn't allowed to have dogs. She had multiple large dogs in there. Took it to the court for eviction for breaking that
loophole,
and was able to get the lady evicted. So if there's other tenants of the lease agreement that the tenant is breaking beyond the payment thing, and they didn't bring up that she hasn't made payments or anything in the eviction notice, it was just that she had said that she had pets and she was not allowed to have pets and was able to get the eviction.
That's interesting. So if they're breaking another part of the contract, then perhaps a judge may say in those cases, well, then you could say it's month to month and you're not going to renew because, that's part of the contract as well. I wonder if that would also work. Because there's several properties that we've sold with the tenants in them, and the tenants promised to vacate, and they would send us a letter. They gave the letter to a real estate agent and to the sellers, and I have no idea if they could have backed out on that. I have no clue, but that's what our client wanted and satisfied them as far as the tenants promising to vacate so that they could then occupy. But like I said, I don't know the legalities of that. Go ahead, Andy or Matt.
Yeah, there's probably some leverage there that they could use, as long as they're not saying, hey, we're kicking them out because they haven't made payments. We're kicking them out because they gave us a 30-day notice and it's been 45 days, or they have pets and they're not supposed to have them. Something, or even if they've got busted with drugs. I know sometimes they put in lease agreements that they're not supposed to have drugs on the premises. So if they were arrested for drugs, or they were, they did an inspection and found drugs on the property, that's something that could possibly allow them to be evicted.
Side note, that's Andy Rose's new, he just changed his avatar in Clubhouse.
Yeah. It's a poison.
Nice work, buddy.
You like that?
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Matt, were you going to say something? Matt LaMarche?
Hey, yeah, good afternoon, guys. Ray, Matt, Dan, and no particular order. Sorry, Dan. So
Christ,
I actually have a landlord relationship right now. I am the landlord, and I have a tenant that we're going through this with. We're going through with this right now. That um, it was actually non-payment was the reason that we justified. And upon further digging, as well as the advice of legal counsel, we were told that according to the CDC guidelines on this moratorium, they actually did have to prove some sort of hardship, which ours never did. And of course, they wouldn't have filed that with us. They would have filed that with, I assume, something. I have no idea how that part works. But we are currently working through that to get them out, actually. And Andy's exactly right. Like any failure in the contract at all, we're really, really good being real estate professionals, that are also landlords, and protecting ourselves as much as possible. So, two or three things you can do that would be obviously late fees. Like I make mine super, super crazy so that it's really, really painful that they're a day late, because that behavior, typically sets a standard. But then anything and everything else in that contract that you can, like Andy said, the pets, drugs, any illegal behavior, we also require them to not just provide their driver's license and pictures of their photo IDs, but also any cars that they're going to have there. And if they go during a 2-year period and purchase a new car, they have to provide VIN numbers and tag numbers and all that type of stuff. Just so if I do my drive-by, I can confirm who is actually living there and who's not. So just a couple tips.
Yeah, and you can do a thing, how many people can live there, and you can have all that stuff in your contracts.
That's interesting. Well, thanks for the information, guys. That's super helpful.
Stonks.
Stonks. Maggie, you came up during that discussion. Did you have something to add to that in particular, or do you just are you up here for a later article?
I was going to spin off. It's not about the moratorium, but you guys kind of started touching on the potential for the future inventory from the landlords divesting, and I just wanted to get your take on those of you in California. I haven't looked at everybody's bio, but those of you in California on the Prop 19, the potential for Prop 19 to open up a little inventory with regard to the passing away of people who are sort of hoarding a lot of rental property, and their heirs in the past have been able to just take that over, and the property taxes are zero. So, why wouldn't I just keep on holding on to those? But now with the property taxes potentially going up to market, or people having to move in, then I don't know. What do you think?
Dan, can you wax poetic on this? Because I know everybody and their aunt are leaving California in droves right now, which you've been talking about. Isn't that right, Dan?
It's a mass exodus is what it is. I'm actually looking up stuff on it, but sorry.
That's his computer talk.
Yeah, that's me doing computery talk things. I don't know. I mean, there's not a mass exodus from California. Again, I'm going to say it for the 1,000th time. I wish there was, because I want less traffic here. There's too many people in California. So please, by all means, let me sell your house, and you can move to any of the hotter states: Arizona, Texas, Idaho, any of those.
Yeah, I'm not talking about a mass exodus. I'm talking about people.
I know.
Leaving in a box.
Yeah, it's our running joke on the show, because every article that has to deal with California real estate is talking about the mass exodus, and Dan's just not experiencing that. So
not at all. But more and more. But to be serious about your point, is more and more what I hear is that exactly what she said. I'll leave this house, or what I actually hear a lot is they're going to bury me in the backyard. Then I'm going to give this house to my kids.
Right.
Well, thanks for bringing that topic up, Maggie. We'll have to look into that more, because I haven't actually seen any news on the Prop 19. So we'll look it up and definitely cover it more next week, maybe. Is it supposed to be
nice? I'll be here.
Is it supposed to be passed soon, or is this kind of down the road?
No, Prop 19 passed last November. And we had a lot of people scrambling with, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I redo my deed so that my kids can inherit? And, should I grant my property to my kids right now so they can keep the tax base when I pass away, and this and that and the other? So there was quite a bit of frantic deed examination and lots of visits to attorneys and estate planner people. And to be honest, even with my own properties, I'm not necessarily an older investment property owner, but I am looking to the future. I have a 13-year-old, and that was all part of my plan for my legacy. But I was looking at it like all my landlords. But there have been some moves in the state legislature about postponing and retroacting and all of this stuff. And so, I haven't necessarily kept my finger right on it. But when you guys it seems like you were transitioning to a discussion about the potential for inventory coming onto the scene. Thank God. I mean, I'm starving for inventory like you. I do have clients moving out of state for sure. I even have family members moving out of state, but it is certainly not a mass exodus. And there's plenty of people in the long line trying to buy every single house that comes on the market. So if we could get some more inventory, I'm excited. And so you're talking about something that I hadn't considered, which is this eviction moratorium putting pressure on landlords to sell. And then what I have had in the back of my mind is the Prop 19 putting pressure on heirs to sell.
Yeah, so you heard it here first. Even real estate agent Maggie's family's leaving California. That's just how the news articles are going to twist it.
When news breaks, we fix it. But yeah, so one thing I didn't think about is the child has to live there. So what if you have 5 kids? Who do you pick to live there? I guess you're going to learn who the favorite kid is.
So that's one of the interesting things about the eviction moratorium and also Prop 19. And, now that you said that, I think we did cover that back in November. I was thinking it was something new, but I remember talking about it, and actually remember Dusty talking about family farms and things that were happening there. So I think we did talk about it back then, but the inventory could come from a multitude of ways. One is the people that are in forbearance that can't catch up, but they have equity in their home. They're not going to be foreclosed on. They're just going to list their property and then take the equity and take it somewhere else. The question is, where are they going to go? And if the eviction moratorium has a lot of accidental landlords that have been keeping good property for a long time, they never really intended to, but they couldn't sell it back when they tried, so they moved. Now they are holding this property. Now the tenant's not paying. The air conditioner is starting to go out. Like, these things are piling up and they're not getting money from it. So even maybe when there is a time where they could evict, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just sell it, or maybe they'll evict and then sell it. And I could see that adding some inventory to the market, but I don't think it'll be enough to satisfy demand. And one of the reasons is because rates are still low, which kind of
but Ray, they went way up.
I mean,
so if you want to talk about incentivizing, so finally there's more inventory. Finally, people are going to sell. Finally, people, those sellers are going to be like, cool, I have a place to go now. But now interest rates went way up and they're not going to buy. What are we going to do, Ray?
Yep. By way up, what Dan means is they crept up to 2.8.
Oh.
Now, this is a change of 0.2. So the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate increased slightly to 2.8% for the week ending in July 19th. This article, or July 29th, this article comes to us from Housing Wire. That halted a streak of weekly declines, according to mortgage rates data released Thursday by Freddie Mac. So according to Sam Cotter, he's the chief economist at Freddie Mac. That's probably Cater. I don't know. I'll say Cotter. There's some uncertainty about the Rona variant, and the housing market is still enjoying low rates. He says, quote, as the economy works to get back in its pre-pandy self, the fight against the Rona variant unfolds, and owners and buyers continue to benefit from some of the lowest mortgage rates of all time. 15-year fixed is 2.1%.
That's dumb.
So the price increases that we've seen across the board still have not made up for the price decrease in the money. The money is still cheaper overall than the price increases that we've seen. However, Let's see. With over 95% of refinance applications for fixed mortgage rates, borrowers are still looking to secure a lower rate for the life of their loan. That was from Joel Kahn.
I'm always at the ready on that one. Always.
Yeah. So 7-month trend of unprecedented home price growth. Potential home buyers are put off by extremely home prices and increased competition. So although that the math still works, the home buyers are still looking at it saying, I'm not so sure. We'll get to that in just a second, but let's talk about the Rona and how it may impact the housing market, specifically the variant. We touched on this a little bit last week in a similar article. I'm going to cover like 3 or 4 articles here, kind of pretty fast, back to back to back.
Bam, bam, bam.
Bam, bam, bam. So this is another one from Logan. Let's see. Housing Wire. There's so much happening in the housing market right now. It's hard to stay on top of the latest data and what it means. Logan says we have a lot of crazy housing data, but when you make Rona 19 adjustments and work on the moderation for the parabolic run up from the second half of 2020, not much is happening. Isn't that interesting? He said it looks very normal to me.
Just for reference, this is Housing Wire. This is on their Slack channel, and this is essentially Logan getting interviewed about this.
Oh yeah, I thought that part was cool. I meant to mention that. Sorry.
Yeah.
He said we see that new home sales in the new home sales market as well. The data got extremely wild, but since then it's kind of moderated. The uptrend is the new home sales working from the weakest housing recovery since 2008 to 2019 is still intact, even with extremely high cost price inflation buyers had to deal with in 2020 and 2021. So again, that's kind of what we're saying, that sales are still going up even with the inflation that we've seen. His point 4 is, of course, the main reason why I say this is the unhealthiest housing market post 2010 is that price has gone straight vertical. And existing home sales market, not because of the credit boom, but because of raw shortage of homes.
Which is big and leads towards his other article we're going to cover, the 2008 one.
Yeah, the 5-year cumulative price growth model that he had for 20 to 24, which I believe things would be okay. If we only had a 23% price growth during the period, it's been smashed for 2 years. So
yeah, he predicted that over 5 years, and it happened over the last 2.
So his biggest concern is on the price growth. Right.
Yeah. And so specifically for the Delta, how the Delta will impact, he says, with the last 2 surges in summer and the winter, the virus doesn't impact the economic data in a big way anymore. My belief, remember Logan is speaking, which he wrote about last year, is that we can't replicate the fear of the virus like we did in March of 2020. We're working from the longest economic and job expansion in history, January to February. Economic data was good. So he's taking into account that initial fear of, oh my God, we're all going to die. And we all retracted. We can't replicate that. And it probably won't happen. He goes on to say, Americans don't panic as they did in March, April. So everyone has learned to consume goods and services with an active virus killing people each day. Now that nearly 70% of the country has at least one shot, and we see the virus curve falling in other countries, people have learned to live with the virus. Even with the 2 surges last year, the leading economic data still rose. So he can literally equate anything to anything, through data. It's amazing.
He's a good economist. Yeah. It's a really interesting article. We're not going to reveal all of it in part just because
this is a plus.
Logan, and it is a Housing Wire Plus. We got another Housing Wire Plus article coming too. If you're interested in deep dive economics, then you need to follow him on social media, but also subscribe to the Housing Wire Plus. He's got tons of charts, stats, and facts. But basically, when did he say it would return to normal, become a more normal market?
When is he predicting?
That's let's see. The inventory is at 5.53 months currently. Maybe that's in the next article that we.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a good article. His biggest concern is home price growth, but in the next article, we see that home seller profits are taking a surprising turn.
Right.
So profit margins for home sellers took an unexpected dip in the second quarter, but they continue to significantly exceed the levels from a year ago. The dip may be a sign that the investment returns may be declining, according to the Atom Data Solutions, which we know a lot of people don't like. We mentioned them. What show is that where we mentioned Atom Data? And we had 3 or 4 people be going. They were like, Atom Data.
Yeah, they hate it.
I don't know why. So anyway, this data.
Yeah, it was a very adverse reaction to Atom Data Solutions. Or okay, we're just pulling data. It's okay.
It's just a data provider here. Sorry about that. I was getting a call. In the second quarter, typical single-family condo in the U.S. posted an average profit of $94,500. That was up from $90,000 in the first quarter, and $60,000 in the second quarter of 2020. So a $30,000 increase for a condo. But the profit margin return on investment that sellers made out of the original purchase declined from 48% a year ago to 44.9%.
So I pulled that same stat from the article. So it's funny we're seeing the same thing, but that, yes, it's a dip, but it's more of a, I know we've asked a lot on this show the last month and a half since we started seeing it, and our viewers and our listeners have started seeing it. The slowing, I think it just kind of speaks to the slowing. I wouldn't even say it's a leveling yet. It's just a cooling off. But instead of 140 degrees, you're not going to burn your hand off, but you're still going to get a pretty severe burn at 125 degrees. You know what I mean?
Well, and one of the things we see when stuff starts to cool off is that lenders become a little more aggressive. And that's exactly what we saw here. Mortgage lenders are loosening standards on jumbo loans.
That's what the headline is, but they are kind of loosening on everything. It just says jumbo loans in the title.
I think jumbo because that's the key word that causes people to think of 08, right?
Yeah.
Banks moved to easing loaning standards for most mortgage loan products during the second quarter, according to Loan Officer Opinion Survey published this week by the Federal Reserve Board. The quarterly survey found that most banks loosened their underwriting standards, most notably on jumbo loan products, including qualified mortgages or QM loans, jumbo mortgages, non-QM jumbo mortgages. 2 exceptions to the trend were for government-sponsored enterprise GSEs eligible loans, where standards were unchanged on the net, and for subprime mortgages. So there's kind of the curve, right?
Yeah.
But Dee Jones is also in the audience. She probably has an extensive bit of knowledge on this. Kelly Jones, I don't know if she's here today too, but she's kind of on the loan side. She would be as well. And let's see, Mark. I wonder if Mark's in the house. No, he's not in the house, but he could also wax poetic about exactly what's happening in this. Banks reported a stronger demand for residential real estate loans over the second quarter, with significant demand for QM and non-QM jumbo loans. Meanwhile, demand for government residential mortgages, revolving home equity line of credits, and subprime residential mortgages remained unchanged. I think maybe a big reason, I don't know for sure, but it seems like a lot of the government loans are kind of getting looked over. So closing a government loan right now, when your competition is conventional and cash, that's difficult.
Yeah.
And so that may be why the number of closings with government loans is down. Let's see. These results indicate that the ranges of standards of consideration have not changed significant way over the pandy, facilitating comparisons of the levels of standards over time. So we thought that was newsworthy, just something to keep your eye on. And if you have any clients that are in the jumbo loan category, it may be a good time for them to get out there and see what else they could get as far as rates go and see what they could lock in. But we know one of the reasons why. Did you have anything to add on that, by the way, on the jumbo loan product before I get?
Not really. It just mentions that, obviously pre 2005, 2007, they were the easiest. And then post 2008 to 2010, they were super tight, which I started as a real estate agent in 2011. So I remember all like kind of the tail end of those things really, really tight. And then they started loosening up in 2012 and 13, I guess. Right. So, but we're still at tighter standards than pre 2019, because remember when lenders started getting all this business, they were like, whoa. We need to slow down. We can't handle all this volume coming in. So they tightened. And then, so it's interesting because they can tighten and loosen. Remember, individual lenders can change their standards to whatever they want as long as they're following national guidelines.
And home prices are still rising. We're going to get to the article about 2008 in just a second. Hey, Lisa, what's up? Thanks for joining the clubhouse room. We're going to get to the article about 2008 in just a second. This is all kind of leading up to it. But home prices are rising, but relief is for buyers is coming. Home prices continue to rise on a national inventory level. Let me reread this. Home prices continue to increase as national inventory levels remain low heading into August, but relief for buyers could be coming in the next 12 months. So home prices increased 2.3% according to CoreLogic. That's 17.2% year over year. Let's see the price gains. This is it. CoreLogic officials said
we're here. We've done it.
Slow.
Yes. Yeah. We're at the precipice, my friend. We're here. We've been predicting this for the last month and a half, and now we're starting to see it. Right. It's not a headline yet, but you will start seeing headlines. I'm going to say it's going to still take another. It's going to take another month and a half, but we'll start seeing headlines. Home price gains slow.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's in an article, though. You heard it here first.
Home price gains have been rising in the mid to single digits for some years now, and the recent surge of double-digit prices jumps reflect the convergence of exceptional demand, persistent low supply. That was Frank Marshall, the CoreLogic CEO. Affordability will become a more acute issue for the foreseeable future. 17.2% growth is the largest annual growth reported since 1979.
Which I found interesting. I was alive then, but at 6 years old, I wasn't buying a house yet, so I wasn't really paying attention to the market. But I find that really interesting. There was that big of a jump from 79 to 80.
That was before my time.
Yeah, I was 6. In case you guys didn't know, I'm old.
All right. So could all of this? All right. We have the mortgage rates that are creeping up. The Rona variant affecting the housing market by
loosening up of lending standards.
Yep. We have the seller profits taking a turn, so they're going down a little bit. Mortgage lenders are loosening their standards. Home prices are still rising, but some relief for buyers is coming. Is this going to lead to 2008?
Yes.
Logan says no.
Oh.
Michael Elizabeth Rodell says, she says, we all know they won't say home price gains slow. They'll say home price gains crash. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see a double-digit crash.
Yeah.
It's just still rising by single digits, but hey, it's a double-digit home price crash. All right. So Logan says it's not 2008 all over again. And I know, Dan, you did a deeper dive or a deeper look into this one. The one thing that I wanted to bring out and kind of point out is something I noticed like halfway down the article. And it was talking about inventory. There it is. 3-month supply of inventory annually. It's number 3, month supply of inventory annually. And it's showing about 5.2 months of supply in 2014. We're at 5.3 now. The amount of supply in 2006 and 7, which we all remember is like crazy great. The amount of supply in 06 nationally was 6.5 months. The amount of supply in 07 was 8.9 months. So we're still at a point that's kind of below a line of balance, I guess you could say, that 6-month line, but we're approaching it. And I thought that was a really interesting tidbit from this article that I was like, I guess we are kind of coming back to normal. But Dan, what were your biggest takeaways on this one?
Hold on, I'm messaging Matt. Sorry. Stretch. What is it called? There you go. Sorry. I couldn't remember. I wanted him to bring up a graphic. I'm trying not to do this on the show so you guys don't see behind the scenes, but whatever. It's too late now. I couldn't remember what it was called. So for me, what I hit is, and he's been saying this for a while, but today, again, this is Logan. This is Housing Wire Plus, so we don't want to get into too much of it, but there's great content on Housing Wire. So, go check that out for sure. Today, we have healthy replacement buyer demand, but very little speculation demand. Demand is not based on speculation buying like it was in the mid-2000s. We have the demographics to replace buyers that are leaving the market because they already purchased a home or for other reasons. We know this isn't a bubble because although we have healthy demand, we are not experiencing a dramatic increase in mortgage originations. Purchasers today need to qualify for low-risk loans that require adequate cash flow. So that one to me leads to, and if you can, Matt, if you can find that graphic, it's the mortgage originations by credit score. And this is on the show yesterday. There you go. Thanks, buddy.
Oh, wow.
on the pre-show show, remember who sent us this?
Kelly Jones.
Yeah. This is why she brought this up specifically. So home buyers today have a positive cash flow with longer term fixed debt mortgages because the higher risk ARM adjustable rate mortgage loans and other exotic products were not offered from 2014 to 2021. Credit does not need to constrict to keep the market safe. Lenders could raise the down payment levels on conventional 30-year fixed loans as a means to balance risk. But home buyers today have high cash flow, so these measures have not been needed. The era of low FICO score Americans owning homes in scale, remember in scale, is over, and those times are never coming back. Never coming back. He says a very definitive statement there as far as is this 2008 all over again. He goes on to say, added to this, the cash out refinance boom meant many longtime homeowners also had little to no equity. He means back then in 2000.
Yeah,
everyone's like, dude, my house is worth $1 million. I'm going to take out 400 grand. And then, oops, my house is worth 600 grand.
Yeah.
They had little to no equity once home prices began to fall. None of that is happening now. No recession, no large number of low equity loan holders, no falling home prices. This is why I went, remember, not I, Logan, why he went after the housing bubble boys and the forbearance crash bros so hard in 2020 and 2021.
So to describe this graph that
mic drop.
Yeah, that Dan was looking at, basically in Q1 of 05, 06, 07, you had a larger portion of those with a 620 to 660 credit score. Well, even to the 719 credit score, you had a pretty high portion of the number of people getting a home loan was in that category. And so ultimately, you could make the conclusion that those with a stronger score are perhaps more financially responsible. Maybe that's how he's alluding to it. And today in Q1 of 2021, the vast majority of those getting a home loan are in the 760 plus range. From this, I would say from the 720 to the 760 plus range.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty overwhelming on that data. The last 8 years?
Right. The number of consumers with new foreclosures and bankruptcies is way down. And then he talked a little bit about the supply graph. So good.
Thank you, Dusty. Yes.
What? Oh, did he?
Dusty's comments. Hers are always so dead on.
In other words, no more approving for home loans for the strippers solely on stated income.
Right.
Yeah. So that was big back then. A no doc stated income loan. Right. You didn't have any documents to prove it. You could tell them how much you made, and you could get a loan back then. Yeah. And that is now long gone. And, the loosening standards that we were talking about earlier, it specifically said that they weren't loosening standards on the subprime housing, and they weren't loosening standards on some of the government loans. It's on the other stuff, which is generally provided to those that were, I guess you could say, more well off, lower debt to income ratio borrowers, maybe. What was the other graph I saw on here? It wasn't from Black Knight.
Don't pull anything from Adam.
Forbearance had been a bohemian of the housing market since the start of the programs. A lot of the people have speculated there would be a bubble crash in 2021 because the forbearance programs will end. But the housing bubble boys have been wrong for a decade. According to them, forbearance programs were supposed to put on hold 10 million to 15 million loans. When the forbearance program started, a good chunk of the loans were projected to go into delinquency and straight into some type of forced selling, foreclosure, or short sale. But instead of the housing collapse, the forbearance data collapsed. Near 5 million loans that were once in the programs have been whittled down to 1.9 million. That's a very good shot. That forbearance.
Yeah, from 5 down to
So he thinks it'll be less than 1 million in 2022. So there you go. So we're not looking at an 08 crash. Let me get to some of these comments.
So there you go. Everyone stop writing articles about it. Just stop writing articles about 08 crash. Just there you go. We're done. We've put a cap on it, put a lid on it. We're all done. Let's move on.
Levi's in the audience though. He he needs to do another one of those videos about YouTube with the crash, right? You got to do it now. Pete Thorpe mentions for burn. We need to link it up anytime we mention it. So link it up, producer Matt. Pete says as soon as people realized that the loans weren't going to be forgiven and those people didn't lose their job, they called the bank, paid their loans, and moved along.
They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm good. I got you. I'm paying you back.
Let me make sure I haven't missed any of these comments here. I think we're good.
I think they're good.
Okay. They're talking a little bit of weather discussion in the comments. So if you want to join the YouTube comments and talk about weather, thanks, Julie Moon.
1-800-4BURNED. Have you been burned?
Yes. We just posted a link to that. So be sure to check out the for burned in the links of the comments there. We'll also put it in the description. Don't forget to do that, producer Matt. All right. So let's talk about something that's a little more interesting. Well, not to say that the housing crash isn't interesting. We've kind of, I feel like we've talked about that at length, right? I mean, those of you who have been with us for a while know kind of where we stand. You also know
but what we haven't talked about in a while.
What we haven't talked about are sellers spying on buyers.
Yeah.
So this is from Realtor Magazine. 1/3 of sellers admit to using spy cams during showings. 1/3. 3 in the 10 home sellers said that they've used a hidden camera during an open house to show their home, according to a Lending Tree study of more than 2,000 consumers. The most common reason, cited by nearly half of those who provided the reasons, is to understand what home buyers do and don't like about their homes. Okay. Nearly 36% of those respondents said they wanted to use the camera to gather information that could be useful during negotiations.
Interesting, because remember, Ray, we covered this 2 years ago or something with the emergence and the growing trend of smart homes, and it was like, hey, be careful because they might be listening.
Don't talk by the door. Yeah.
Don't talk about the house. Don't talk about anything because they might be listening. They may use that for negotiations. And our take was, can you use that for negotiations? Now it's like straight up, we're going to use this for negotiations.
Yeah. Christina M. Smallhorn's checking on Facebook. She says, hey, fellas, hey. So 23% of those who admitted to using the spy cams said that they used them to see what their real estate agent was saying about the home.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. I thought,
it's cute. This is going to sell in a minute. And then you get to the prospective buyers. Dude, this thing's beat up. You need to offer below asking.
My sellers are totally motivated. Just put in an offer. They'll give you a closing cost. Yeah. Okay. Now you're on camera saying that, right?
Oops.
Many home buyers suspect their use. More than a quarter, 29% of buyers who used a real estate agent for their home purchase said that their agent warned them about hidden cameras. Only 30%-ish everybody warn your clients about this, okay? Let's see. Despite the use of surveillance, 56% of consumers said it doesn't make them want to go back out of a deal and purchase their dream home, even if they find out their person's secret or their seller is recording them. The remaining 44%, however, said they would not buy the home if they felt spied on. Christina M. Smallhorn says, I spy on agents on social media. Yeah.
Pretty much every house I show has some sort of camera, either outside or inside. The inside ones are a little more rare, where you're
what's this X's? Producer Matt put some X's on it. He wants the last one. He wants to focus on the last one in the middle one here. To ensure the home is safe during showings, or just to always have the home on the security cameras on for security purposes. Those would be the good reasons. The other reasons to understand what
live editing, by the way, live editing.
Very good. Very good.
No other show does this.
Well, the NFL, but still, to gather information that would be useful during negotiations, to see what the real estate agent is saying. This is pretty bad. Dusty Martin says Alexa is always listening and she's a narc.
Don't. She's plugged in right now. Don't.
Shh. Pete Thorpe says, I tell everyone that I go out with to assume that there are cameras or their audio listening devices always. And some owners are not the brightest and leave their smart speaker in drop-in mode. so the ring is flashing when you're strolling about.
Just gives it away.
What's this ring spinning? That's hilarious. They leave it in drop-in mode.
It's always
Okay.
listening.
So this is an interesting topic. If anyone wants to chime in on Clubhouse, just kind of flash your mic. I do want to tell a story. Okay, I see you, Peggy.
Can I ask you a question though before your story? I don't want to interrupt your story, but I want to ask this question: is what are the ramifications if you say if I'm with my buyers and they say, "Oh my God, I love it. This is amazing. I'll just give them whatever," and the seller comes back and goes, "Wait, you only offered asking. You said you would give us whatever, so we're going to counter you. We want 20 grand more." Can you use that?
I mean, I guess you could just counter them and see what they do, right? You don't have to say anything as if you're representing the seller and the seller's like, counter them 20K. Well, you kind of got to do whatever the seller tells you to do.
What if they say, well, no, I heard them on camera saying?
It would probably, well, that does put you in a precarious situation as a real estate agent. Do you have to disclose that? Probably.
I mean,
doesn't it say in the contract that they would disclose all in our listing agreement? It says that we're going to disclose the presence of surveillance cameras if we know about it.
Presence of, not data acquired through the presence of those cameras.
Michael Elizabeth says our contract specifies that written supersedes any verbal offer. Yeah, true, but it also tells us that we have to disclose it. Pete Thorpe says, if the day comes when I sell my house, I 1,000%, or is that 1,000,000%, will have cameras on and mics. I don't care what the law is.
He has all those on now.
You tell people it's not a problem. Okay, so
Pete, we love Pete, but dude, he's one step away from, yeah.
Are you calling it a conspiracy theory?
He has cameras and mics on now. Probably on me in my house somehow.
True. He's tapped in. He's tapped into the Dan.
By the way, I've met Pete once in real life as well.
Yeah,
that dude is in shape. He's like a brick. He's just a brick of a man. FYI,
CrossFitter.
Yeah.
Lisa Perk. What's up, Lisa? She said I had a client. I had a client way before cameras were typical and weren't multiple offer. Before it was a contract, who heard a buyer say he was going to write an offer for X, but would pay full price. Oh, wow. She says, guess how my sellers countered. Yep. D Jones tagging people. Thank you, D. Michael Elizabeth says, and when we have multiple offers and the buyers left positive feedback, and the ones that the sellers go with are instead of the feedback that the buyers are just so on it. Huh. That's interesting too. That's smart.
I mean, part of what I take into account is, not always the numbers, not always the terms, but will this close? What is the buyer's motivation? What is the agent legit? Do they understand how this process works? Is this transaction going to close? Not just get into escrow, but close. So,
yeah.
Oof.
So here's a little short story. I think it's far enough away from the transaction, which I could tell it. So I was showing some buyers a house, and this is kind of before the smart cameras, smart home stuff, right? We walk into the master bedroom, and there is
executive bedroom.
Yeah, primary.
Careful.
So we walk into the master bedroom. There's this camera that's turned on its side, pointed towards the door, and the little red dot is blinking. It's like an old school camera, right?
So it's on.
So they're on. So they're recording us. So we walk into the master bathroom, and I just tell the seller or the buyers, I whisper to them, I was like, just follow my lead. And they said, okay. I said, we're on camera, like real quietly. They said, okay. So we walk back out into the master, and I say, what is that smell? And my buyers immediately pick up on what I'm putting down, and they're like, what is that smell? And so we started like trying to describe it. Is it like a mildew? What is that? It's some kind of weird smell in here. So we kept talking about this smell, and then we left the house, and we had a good laugh. I know this story. It's good, right? So then about 2 weeks later, I didn't leave any feedback on that house, right? About 2 weeks later, I get a call from the listing agent, and he said, hey, Ray, when you showed that house a couple of weeks ago, on the feedback, you mentioned something about the smell.
And you went,
I said, I didn't leave any feedback on that one. So he's like, oh, really? I thought that was you, that maybe it was someone else. Like, no, not me. I don't know what you're talking about. And so, but what's funnier to me, like, that's interesting, right? But think about it. For 2 weeks, the sellers have been trying to figure out what the smell is in the master bedroom to the point where they were like, just ask him.
Just ask the guy.
So be careful what you wish for if you're a seller putting cameras in your house. You don't know. The feedback you receive, may not be exactly accurate when they figure out that they're being recorded. So
you may encounter a 1990s troll when it was very difficult and you had to be very subtle about your trolling, which both Ray and I are.
Such a subtle troll moment there. So
Got him.
All right, so let me put up the Clubhouse stream. Peggy, what is your take on the video surveillance from sellers?
It is frustrating and it's painful because in Pennsylvania, we are a two-party consent state, which means if you're going to record somebody, you have to give them notice.
Oh.
That could be a listening mode, recording mode, and something that could be overheard. So, think of Alexas and Echoes and Blinks and Nest, but there's nanny cams and baby monitors and, all these things are playing. And in our agreement of sale, we have what's called the Internet of Things. And we are talking about how we're going to have them set to factory reset default settings, and then any user ID and equipment that will be staying will be turned over clear of any data to buyers, right? And in Pennsylvania, we do have our seller's property disclosure, and it was just revised as of July 1st. And there's nothing in there about the disclosures, about the devices that will be listening in. So yeah, at the consultation, prior to any appointments, I bring this up to my clients, expect it to be there, more so than ever not expecting it to be there, and watch what you say. Because to your point, Ray, you talk about something specific like that, no feedback given about it, and it's brought back full circle. Whether they're looking to listen to what buyers are saying and they're looking to listen to what the listing agents are saying, but they're probably also looking to see who's rummaging through cabinets a little bit too long. Who's opening up drawers and things that may or may not be a part of a fixture. So there's so many parts to that frustrates me, especially if all they did was disclose it. We'd have a better position going in. When you don't know, you're already underway. And everybody should be mindful of what they're doing in a home anyway, whether there's devices there or not. But the fact that we don't disclose it is a real pain point of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, good point. Lisa Perk also brought up another point talking about what you just said, Peggy. She says, yes, my last sellers wouldn't release the ring. She said it was a nightmare. So that is a great point. Writing, if you are in a state that doesn't have it already included in your contracts, writing something in there about how the smart homes things should be, or the Internet of Things left in the home should be set to reset to factory defaults. That's a great little add-in that can also show your clients that you're a little more forward thinking than the average agent. So thanks for that, Peggy. That was a great pointer and something I really haven't thought about putting in the contract. Recently we just closed on a house and they had the smart lock or whatever, and we couldn't find instructions on how to reset it or anything. So it was my guy's like, I'm just getting someone else to come in and install a new smart lock. So they're totally taking it off and putting another one on. Matt, he said, producer Matt said the seller of my home took their ring without even though it was drilled into the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, they replaced it with some like little weak sauce doorbell, if I remember right. Lisa Perk said my clients were so creeped out that their sellers were still getting pinged every time they came inside. Yeah, that's weird. Like, who would want to do that? I guess there are people that do anything like that, honestly, but that's kind of strange. All right. So in short, disclose the presence of video, everyone.
Yeah.
And include the reset of the Internet of Things in your contract. That's super smart, especially if the fridge conveys and it's like a smart fridge.
Yeah.
Track of everything you order and everything you buy and stuff. And some of those smart fridges now, they can actually order stuff for you too. And so first thing you know, like, you better as a seller redo that, or else somebody's going to be getting your milk.
I have a story. I can't tell it on the show because we're a family show, but I have a story about a camera set up in a certain room a certain way. So yeah. Don't leave that there either. Just FYI, do not leave that.
Don't leave that
set up, currently set up. Don't leave that there. Just FYI.
Oh, Lisa, she's flashing her mic. Have you had experience with this, Lisa?
Well, not that kind of experience. So, but yeah, I think I'll be on the lookout a little bit more. But anyhow, no, a friend of mine actually, he's an escrow on his house right now, and they had an issue where the buyer decided that they were going to walk. And, they, it was like, hey, well, should we try to save it or not? And the wife said, I heard what that woman said about our house. I don't want to even try to save it. Screw her, screw her. I don't want anything to do with them. And it's just like, you're just losing $10,000 on your transaction. But just by one remark somebody said during an inspection, it was like, just forget it. I don't want to sell my home to these people. And, and I know I've had clients listening in, and I was, especially during COVID, when you kind of had to be door monitor back, like in May of 2020, when we were just getting back out there, trying to be sure that everybody had their mask on and everybody's doing this. And, the homeowners were saying they're coming in without masks. They're coming in without masks. And I had one client who just watched me the whole time, like what you said, wanting to know what I was saying to people and how I was handling it. And that was kind of freaky. But, in California, it is a two-party consent state. However, it is kind of a gray area when you are in somebody's house, and whether, you think they can't hear you, depending on if they got the supersonic Ring doorbell or not. But yeah, we're supposed to be disclosing it, but people don't,
Yeah, I'm just looking at a house. I don't
tell
need
them
it.
about whatever. And it's like, yeah, sooner or later, there's going to be a court case, I am sure, somewhere, but I don't want to be the one to find out. I'm done.
Yeah, it makes it real interesting. I can't wait to see what happens in stories like that, because we're finding weirdos and stuff, and that's kind of what makes the news. But for someone to use it in negotiations and someone else to find out about it, and depending on the state rules and regulations, that's what I think will be brought up in court, which is really interesting. I did have one
in court. There will be court cases on this.
Yeah, for sure. Like Lisa said, I did have one seller one time that complimented me on how I took someone through the home and what I told them about the home, because I'm trying to sell it, right? It's a buyer. So I'm trying to sell the home to them as representing the seller. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Thanks. And I got back in the car after visiting with the sellers. And I was like, wait a minute. They were spying on me the whole time. And that was kind of like, whoa. Cause then I started thinking like, what else have I said in there? like it's kind of weird, but yeah, always be on guard, which is a professional agent. You should carry yourself professionally all the time. But the strange part for me though, let's say you're at an open house of maybe one of your clients or maybe someone else's clients, and the sellers are watching, and maybe between visitors, you're having a private conversation on the phone. That private conversation is not private, y'all. So be careful what you put out there. Giving somebody your credit card number or whatever. If you had somebody nefarious, because you can also hack those. I don't know. I mean, you can hack into all those systems. So it may not be the seller watching, it may be somebody else. So just be on guard. Speaking of being on guard, Chicago is getting our first iBuyer. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Redfin launches their iBuyer program in Chicago.
Chicago.
So this was brought to us. No, I think we talked about it, and Kelly had a lot of questions. Maybe she has people in that area, but Redfin, the tech-powered brokerage iBuying service, has become the first major iBuyer to launch in Chicago, according to the company announcement released Tuesday. Sellers in Chicago area will now have the opportunity to request a cash offer from RedfinNow, rather than going on the open market to sell their home. This is kind of old news. We're not going to go into the details because you guys kind of understand what they're trying to do there, create basically an easy button for people to sell their home back. The interesting news story is that this is also kind of partnered or teamed up with what we're seeing, what I'm hearing happen in Clubhouse, and also what we're seeing in the market now. iBuyers are increasing their purchases. So iBuyer purchases have returned to pre-pandy levels. The homes they are purchasing are less expensive than typical purchase, and are selling their housing inventories in 13 days at a record pace, according to a new report at the State of iBuying conducted by Redfin. iBuyers make an instant cash offer to some home sellers. Oh, it tells you what it does. We already know this. Let's get into some of the statistics here. The top markets are Raleigh, North Carolina, where iBuyers purchased 2.9% of homes during the first quarter, and Charlotte, North Carolina, with 2.7% of sales. Other market leaders for iBuyer include Durham, North Carolina, San Antonio, Texas, Tucson, Arizona, and Phoenix. Those are all above 2% share of the market. We had someone from North Carolina in our room, or maybe this was a different clubhouse. If you're in North Carolina now, raise your hand. But there was someone talking about investments in North Carolina and how it was a real hot spot because Amazon was there now, and there were a couple of other major companies that were opening there. And so it looks like the iBuyers are targeting some of those high investment opportunity areas.
Yeah, and remember, they're not ever like, you don't have any iBuyers there, do you?
No, we don't have any iBuyers in Arkansas that I know of currently.
Yeah, so they're not everywhere, but it's interesting because I think one of the quotes, and I'm not going to go back to the article, but one of the quotes from someone, I think it was at RedfinNow or, one of the iBuyer programs, was like, we're back to pre-pandemic levels. We're buying houses like crazy. They're, because we know we can sell them. And then I kept reading, and it says iBuyers continue to make up a small portion of the home sales. They purchased just 0.5% of homes, or 4,383 homes that sold across 418 metro areas. So this is not a small sampling, but sold across 418 metro areas in the first quarter. iBuyer purchases, however, have increased 20.6% in the first quarter compared to the prior quarter. iBuyers are purchasing homes for less than the metro's area. This is big. And who was it, Ray, yesterday? It was Kelly that's in Chicago.
I don't know if she's in Chicago, but she was just asking a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, because she's, had wondering, and, our take is, hey, they're more of a threat for investors. But Ray, I want to come back to what you said yesterday.
It was Kate. That's
Kate, there you go.
Real Estate Kate. That's who it was.
Real Estate Kate. And she had great questions. We gave her some insight yesterday on that. But Ray, when I finish this last set, I want you to go back to kind of your thoughts on these and how to help your sellers. But my point was, hey, go through the numbers and break them down and show people, because she's like, do I do a video on this or what do I do? And she can do a video around this and kind of get ahead of it. And, because Ray's take is, if I have a client, here's what I do with iBuyers. But she was more concerned about, well, if I'm competing with these iBuyers for the listing kind of thing. But iBuyers are purchasing homes for less than the metro area's median price, according to the Redfin report. The median dollar amount.
Go ahead.
The median dollar amount for iBuyers' first quarter purchase was $302,000, while the median purchase for a typical American home was $320,000. So $18,000 difference on a $320,000 house.
Yeah. Lisa Dunn says it's less than 3% market share. Yes, it looks like overall the highest market share they had was in Raleigh. It's 2.9%.
Which is still under 3%.
We worry about them. Why? The only reason I'm worrying about them is they're competing for my investors, right? So I have investors that want to buy houses, and the easy flips, that would be a great competitor for the investors that want to go change out the floors, paint the walls, and then get it right back on the market. So I mean, that's part of the issue. I think, to Kate's question yesterday, what do you do if you go up against these iBuyers and you're trying to get the listing and the iBuyer is trying to just buy it? I think a real great tactic for your seller is that should be your first offer. Get the slate of offers from whatever iBuyer programs are in your marketplace and show up with those at the listing appointment and say, here's what you could sell it for here. Here's what you could sell it for here. Here's what you could sell it for here. Here are the fees. Here's what that looks like. But if you listed it with me on the market, here's what it would look like. Here's about what you can make. Here's a roundabout of your net.
And if you do happen to bring one that's way over market value, that's a great offer too.
Yeah. And we've heard a couple of different conversations. Glenda Baker has mentioned this, and I think a couple of other people have mentioned where iBuyers, the title of the article said iBuyers are increasing their purchases. They're also increasing the amount that they're purchasing some homes for. And so we're seeing, there was an occasion brought up where somebody said that this person should be able to sell their house on the open market around $330,000. The iBuyer offer was like $370,000. And the question posed to the Clubhouse group was like, what do I do? And the obvious answer was sell it to the iBuyer and you and your seller go have fun, right? So,
well, and then what are they going to do? What have we said before? Yeah. They're going to either just hold it for inventory and then maybe they take a loss, but overall they lost 20 or 30 grand on the house, but they gained traffic to their website.
Yeah. And that's the competition, is that you're not competing against a traditional investor that's trying to flip the property and make money from the sale of the property. You're competing from someone that is trying to flip the property into several different referrals to a real estate agent to then make more money back from every buyer referred off of those properties. And that's your competition. So if they could break even on the property that they're iBuying, or even if they have to spend a little on the property that they're iBuying, they're happy with that because they've made so much more money from the marketing, from hosting it on their website, from getting the buyers and giving those to other people that pay them for it. So it's, I think there's a place for iBuyers in the marketplace. Like Lisa said, why are we worried about them? I don't think we should be. I think, Zillow's goal is to make up like 1% of the purchases, buying and selling. I think that's fine.
And we're going to keep reporting that they lose money on their iBuyer program. We're going to keep losing that, hey,
because they're not worried about making money on their iBuyer program.
Right.
They're worried about making money through the sale of the referrals that come to them. And who do they sell those referrals to? Real estate agents.
Us.
They still need real estate agents in order to make money from this deal. They're just trying to change the way in which they're making money with the real estate by controlling the inventory. So we've talked a lot about horizontal integration. So Zillow also has a Zillow mortgage company, and there's some title company talk and stuff like that they may have in other places. There's real estate companies that now have a title company and a mortgage company. That's horizontal integration. What Zillow, iBuyer programs, Redfin, what they're trying to do now is vertical integration, controlling the supply chain. And whenever you have vertical integration, you have far more control over your future predictions of what you can make. And so the vertical integration is a key. Horizontal integration meets the buyer and seller where they're at the moment of that transaction. But vertical integration, or the supply chain integration, is far different. That's like, Apple owning their own factories that makes the chips that they put in their devices. That's a vertical integration scenario. So it's a smart move by them, but I'm not worried about it as a real estate agent. I'm excited about it because I think there could be more opportunity for real estate agents from in the future. I'm not, it's not going to impact the vast majority of real estate agents that are offering a higher level of service. It's going to impact those agents that are like at the bottom totem pole, right? The 40% that don't have a clue of what they're doing. Those are the ones that really got to examine this and say, okay, I really need to sharpen my tool or get out of the industry.
So I have a question for you, Ray.
Okay.
Are home builders burning bridges with real estate agents?
Speaking of, that was a way that a lot of new real estate agents would enter the market, is they'd team up with a builder. They'd go sit in a open house all week, and they basically work with that builder to help sell those homes. But builders are now starting to burn those bridges. So this report's from Housing Wire. Real estate agents, this is some anecdotal stuff. 134 newly built townhomes in the Ocean View Hills in the area of San Diego. 3-story abodes were part of an array of newly built properties that home builders are creating across South Carolina. An agent affiliated with EXP who specializes in relocating military personnel and her potential home buyer strode into the sales office and the site. And the first thing they said to me was, "I'm not paying you."
Yeah, that's crazy right off the bat. Like, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to walk through the models. We're not paying you.
Yeah, rather rude and off-putting, she puts it. Oof. And we're just mentioning this story because we have heard of this around the country, where home builders are putting more of the burden of the agent representation onto the buyer. And I've had people say that if that happens to me, I don't want to use that home builder because I don't feel comfortable with that. So, but that's the lawsuit that we've talked about through the NAR and the DOJ. The same impact of that lawsuit is similar to what we're seeing here, in which buyers wouldn't have that representation right off if they couldn't afford it. And so the question is, are home builders burning these bridges with real estate agents? Just something to watch and something we wanted to mention because now it has made national news, but we've heard this on our show for 6 or 7 months.
And I do have a couple things I wanted to bring up. So this is from the article. Where is this one from, by the way? We always like to mention where the article's from.
That one was from Housing Wire.
Housing Wire. All right. Lots of good stuff from Housing Wire. But so this is from the article, and this is a quote and kind of statement from Adolfo Ruiz, who is the CEO and senior lending officer at SCFS Home Loans in Longwood, Florida, who has dealt with several Florida home builders. So just as timing is imprecise, so too can be home builder policies for interacting with agents. Decisions in agent relations are generally not made at the executive level, which I find interesting. And he goes, a quote from me, he says, I can tell you who is responsible without a doubt, the regional sales manager. So, and this is an actual managing broker, Jay Skolnick of Premier Community Properties, a home builder in Englewood, Colorado. He says, I pay less than the 2.8 to 3% sales commission that was in the past customary. The information that buyers receive and the reduced amount that a realtor has to do to work a new sale in a new home community, in my opinion, requires a reduced commission. Now, that's fine with me. I get that. We have less to do. Okay. I know I stumbled through that, but we do less on a new construction transaction than others. That's his point. But to walk in and then someone says, I'm not paying you a commission right off the bat, that's burning a bridge.
Comment from Dusty Martin. She says, got to remember builders did that during the boom. Then when things crashed, they started offering 10% in keys for buyer's agents.
Yeah, which is what the article says. It'll ebb and flow. Yeah. But taking away a commission is crazy.
I'm going to bring up Andy. He's in the clubhouse room, and he wants to kind of combine these two topics, Zillow and the builders. What's up, Andy?
Hey, yes, real quick back to the Zillow buying up stuff. I see that as a possible market manipulation, whether it's legal, illegal, ethical or not. But it sounds like it's market manipulation a little bit. But beside that, the second thing about the builders, you said the first part that the agent works with a lot of VA buyers. Well, the veteran cannot pay a buyer agent's commissions. That is a VA guideline. So in that case, the agent would get nothing if their buyer chose to move forward and they still chose to represent the buyer. The buyer or the buyer agent would get nothing because the builder is refusing to put or to pay the commission.
That's a great point. And it seems like maybe the win for, or maybe the way in for the National Association of Realtors would be to bring this up, maybe a light campaign asking why some builders would discriminate against the veterans.
By the way, the article does say, it states, I forget exactly where it was. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But it does say, I think I kept it highlighted. I did not. But it says in here that, hey, there's no tracking of this data, what they pay, kind of trends over the years, when they don't pay it, when they do. And I think it's pretty dead on that it's, when the market's hot, they can pay less. When it's cold, they can pay more. But even the National Association of Realtors doesn't have any data on this, which is interesting. So if they're going to have an issue with it, they're going to go, we don't have any backing on this. So it's interesting that there's no data out there about what they've paid over the course of how many years.
See, Dusty said what I said. She said, interesting discrimination against veterans.
There you go.
Kind of what it is. But the other way, honestly, that is probably it's not going to be the easiest way to handle it, but maybe there's got to be a change in the VA loan product. If they can't buy the house that they're looking for because they also want representation, but yet they can't pay for the representation. Another solve for that is to change the VA loan product to where they could pay for representation. And that may come out of the DOJ NAR battle as well, because if no sellers can cover it, then someone's going to have to. So we may see that. And Andy, I know you have some expertise in that.
What's going on here?
Yeah. So basically, I would say that they don't need to make that change. It's possible that could fix it. I think the overall problem is with that I see is with other agents and some lenders and definitely a lot of sellers not being educated on the VA home loan product in the first place. It's one of the simplest loan products. The problem is that a lot of lenders screw it up. That's 90% of the problem with them. I would say that there's a lot of discrimination beyond even that with veterans because it's difficult to get a veteran, and that's because of a lack of education or a lot of misinformation that's out there.
Yeah, Dusty Martin says preach. And Peggy, you wanted to add about the builder thing too?
Well, I forget who said it about the less work aspect to it, and the builders build that in by boxing us out to one of the, and I've represented many buyers with new construction, and one of the benefits that I explained to them that 9 times out of 10 they don't even know that they can do a pre-drywall inspection.
Yeah.
And that now one of the ways they're making that even more difficult for us is while we have a pool of resources of home inspectors who are capable of doing pre-drywall inspections, now have to have a higher level of liability insurance, including automobile insurance. So they're not prepared to know at the time that if they're going to be chosen, that they don't have that insurance. They have to provide in advance. So we have to shorten who we offer as resources to accommodate now the buyers, the builders with that higher level of insurance. And when it comes to that representation, I have found many times the builders have built something out of the buyer's orders, like an extra room in the basement that suddenly they try and bring in to the equation. But when I've been CC'd on everything, I've been able to pull back that information and say, no, that was not in their list that they're contracted for. This wall that was built is not in the right place according to the design plans that everybody initialed off of. So it's not true that we don't have as much work. That's their perception. I certainly earn my commission as a buyer agent because I go to work from start all the way to settlement. And there are so many times I see the fault in the stars with these builders. So that's not really a true statement.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very good point.
One of the gnarliest home inspections in my career was on a newly built home, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible. Things not up to code, things missing. Like, if you put in an electric dryer, you have to have the 220, or you can do the 110 and then the gas, right? This had 110 and no gas outlet. You couldn't dry clothes in this new construction home. And this is a $750,000 house. It was bad. There was paint overspray. It was really, really bad.
Julie Moon says, we are much more confident at being assertive, and it really is true that you need to bring something up. Most buyers are not as confident doing that. Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's new construction. It'll be fine.
Yep. Good point, Julie. All right, so let's get to the last article. It's just an interesting thing we want to mention to keep us sharp and on our toes as you guys are developing your teams and growing. The new law will limit what teams can be called.
Stupid, dumb. No.
I think it's great. A new law was just passed in Connecticut to impose strict rules on what real estate teams, including how they are allowed to name themselves, prompting concerns from some leaders about consumer confusion, as well as costly and rushed rebranding efforts. New law could also serve as a bellwether for future regulations. New law, which they said goes into effect in January, touches on a variety of real estate licensing issues, generally aims at clarifying what actually counts as a team. So we know that there's been a huge group or a huge growth in the teams and groups around the country. And they say that a group of 2 licensed real estate brokers or real estate salespersons who are affiliated with the same sponsoring real estate broker and engage in advertising as a group using a team name. That's the team. So if you're one real estate agent and you have,
I'm going to call my team group team name.
It's 60 assistants, right? You are not a team.
Licensed assistants though?
No. As soon as they're licensed, then no.
Then you can do it.
Right now, I do want to mention Byron Lazine, who's a friend of mine and also leads the One in Company team with William Ravis Real Estate, who is also an MN contributor, spoke positively about the law's inclusion and definition for teams, saying it will create a useful standard. That's what I think, too. He said, I think it'll be a good thing, but he was significantly more concerned about other aspects of the law he characterized as ongoing fee structure as new tax. And he said he'll have to embark on a major rebranding effort. So the rebranding process will involve changing copy in multiple websites, including Lazine's own. Logos, bios, other text will have to be updated. Ultimately, could take anywhere from a week to a month. It'll be a significant loss of income for a lot of teams that have to change everything. So that's the, there's no being grandfathered in. Everything's got to be changed and fixed, basically, is what they're saying. And that's going to add quite a bit of expense.
So conspiracy theory, this is a big ploy put together by marketing firms to get this rebranding money to get flowing into their companies.
I'm sure. Well, so I think
On
it's a
that
positive
note,
thing. I think it's a positive thing only because there has been some confusion in the past about these teams that are kind of running rampant. And in my opinion, if you're trying to create a big team and you want your broker's logo to be as small as possible, powered by, mention little brokerage logo here, then you have to think like, why are you paying that brokerage money if you're embarrassed to mention them, right? You should be proud of the brokerage that you work for, and you should promote that.
Wait, don't you own a brokerage? Ray, no, I'm not. No,
Wait,
you have ulterior motives. No.
Let's do this. So, but in my opinion, the brokerage should add some value to when you mention it. It does add some value to your team. So mentioning it, it shouldn't be a problem in accordance with license law to have a brokerage and a team name and also mention them. I don't see that is a conflict of interest. And as someone who has people working with us, we don't ever see a real estate agent working for us, but someone, as we have real estate agents working with us, we think it's important that the consumer also know who they can contact if something goes wrong, or for whatever reason they can't get a hold of our agent, or if, God forbid something like that were to happen. Right. So
now
you're in a different situation, right? So this is coming from, I'm in Arkansas. There's very little regulation on the team thing so far. It's just, hey, you have to display your name as big as the broker's name. That's all.
Regulation is coming, buddy. You hate regulation.
Yep. But you're in a different situation. So you're looking at this regulation and thinking, oh man, more, because you're already under some severe regulations that control exactly what your name can be called and all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, with RE/MAX, we have very specific branding requirements. So it's not even, and remember too, we have a code of ethics. I get the whole misleading thing. Don't call yourself a broker if you're not a broker kind of thing. But yeah, RE/MAX, we have very specific branding guidelines that we have to adhere to. I did find an interesting way around it though. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, you'll see that at DLudwigRocks, DLUDWIGROCKS. I found an interesting way around that, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done is in regards to marketing.
But one of the things we do with all of our agents' Facebook pages is we make the title of them compliant. So then every single post they have is compliant. They don't have to add everything to the bottom of the post.
Yeah.
Like you see,
and I have my DRE number on my page. So everything I post is,
we don't,
but it literally says after it, so I don't get in trouble. And so I put that here.
So tell everybody where they could find you again. What is that?
DLUDWIGROCKS everywhere. You can follow me here on Clubhouse if you're listening. So please follow me here. And you can also just buy me a drink. They're my cash apps right there. That's D Ludwig Rocks as well, because I know we make an exorbitant amount of money through the show.
Yeah, huge.
If you want to buy Ray or a drink, follow our cash apps. But D Ludwig Rocks, DLUDWIGROCKS everywhere. Ray, where can they find you?
RAYZORBACK everywhere good Razorbacks are sold. Primarily on Instagram though. Follow me on Instagram, DM me if you got any questions. If you ever wanted to add or contribute to the show, jump on to the YouTube, jump onto the Facebook, or jump into the Clubhouse group. We really appreciate you guys. Somebody was like, hey, I got to run. Sorry I didn't contribute much today, but honestly, your viewership, your presence, you listening in is a contribution. And we really appreciate you guys tuning in. So don't forget. Are you listening to the Clubhouse in 1 year? And oh man, Dan. Oh gosh, we muted you. You're good.
Pulled my headphone out. Sorry. There you go.
So be sure you guys follow, subscribe, hit that bell. What's the other thing that we need to do?
Tip us on Cash App.
Subscribe to the podcast. We're getting a lot more podcast views and subscriptions. We love that. Appreciate that. Please review the podcast, because that's what happened. We got several reviews and then boom, the subscriptions to the podcast went way up. That stuff allows us to continue to do more and more and more and get better for you guys. So we appreciate you, and we will see y'all next time. Bye,
it is only Droid users, Pete, because I have all these different plug-in jacks to deal with. It's weird.
It's got so many holes in the bottom.
On that note, bye guys. Love you.
Bye everybody. Bye.